bnei adam munachim bo lemikrim ad bo es pkudatam. Regular people, things occur to them because of the laws, because of haphazard realities, which are basically because God is only keeping the general rules of science, etc. What we call Hashgacha klalit. Aval b'chasidav, if you're a person which is called a chassid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I don't mean, God doesn't wear a fur hat and white breeches. It means you basically are constantly thinking and living with God. He will elaborate in other places what the criteria for chasidav is. Yasum elav libo ladat oto bifrat. Yes, for a person which is a chassid, God will definitely give him a unique attention, a unique singular attention. Yasim elav libo, he will give him specific attention, ladat oto bifrat, to know him singularly, as opposed to Hashgacha klalit. Now we're talking about Hashgacha pratit, and this is lechasidav. Liyot shmiratot v'kapo tamid, that the protection will constantly be cleaving to you. Lo tiparei idea v'askeremenu klal. There, nothing will stop that. Equals a person which is a chassid, he is going to be protected even from what you call mikra, for the regular laws of science. Okay, he'll be protected in an unbelievable way. Ketame quotes the pasuk in Yov, lo yigareh mitzadik. No. Who is the person that God does not stop looking at him constantly? Only the tzaddik. So the word tzaddik in Iyov is the parallel to the word chasidav over here in the Ramban. Ubo b'zeh psukim arabim ki yachsiv hinei ein Hashem el yirei av. Every third title here. Chasid, tzaddik, yirei av. One who lives in awe of God. These are the people, the chassid, the yirei, Hashem, the tzaddik. Somehow they're all synonymous in this context. These are the people which have constant hashgacha pratis, even against what people are normally munach by lemikrim. Here he does not describe schar v'einish. That's the piece here. So what do we see here? We see here adrabah, there is mikra, but that's called hashgacha klalit. That's also a mess. Hashgacha klalit means he has decided that he's going to make sure that the sun rises and the sun sets and the moon does, etc., and gravity works this way. And so many things happen. The laws of science, the laws of preservation of the species, so on and so forth. That's number one. The people who are not governed at all by the mikra are the chasidim and tzaddikim, that they will be protected even from the mikra. That is something else. That's actually not mentioned in the source that we just read before. What's mentioned in the source before was only mikra, Sachar, and Onish. So here we have the idea of mikra. That's found in Bereshis Yud Ches. So he calls that Hashgacha Klalit. Now let's go, if you don't mind, to source Ches, which is the book of the Ramban on Schar v'Onish. It's called Shar HaGemul, Toras HaAdam. Toras HaAdam is a book of morals, ethics, and halacha. All the dinim avelus of the Ramban are found in that book. There's there's Musa there, there's halacha there, Hashkafa, you name it. It's a major book of the Ramban. And the Ramban writes as follows. This is again Torat Adam in Shar HaGemul. There's a whole big chapter which deals with God's gemul, reward, or how he interacts with our ma'asim. Odizkiu Chazal derech achez b'yisurim. Chazal mentioned a certain approach to Yisurim. Amru, they said the Gemara in Erechin Tez Zay and Amid Beis, Tana Rabbi Yishmael. Kol shavru alav 40 yom below Yisurim, a person which had 40 days without Yisurim. If you recall from last time's learning Yisurim, even if you couldn't pick out the right change out of your wallet, or your suit doesn't fit you exactly the way it should be, it's a bit tight under the arm. It's called Kaikibel Olamo. Mamish, this is unbelievable. You got Sachar of boy here. I mean, you must be a very special person. Upirisha Inyanhu, Min HaMikrim Aovim Benoeg Shel Olam. Things happen in the world. Min HaMikrim Aovim Benoeg Shel Olam. Things naturally occur in this world. Va'baim Al Kol Adam. And it happens to everybody. Kigon. Times it's a drag what you're doing. Okay, this is a natural occurrence because of your psychological persona, because not always do you have a job which is enticing, and sometimes it's a drag. What about the idea you get a stomach ache because you ate too much shont on Shabbos? Okay, is that an einish? It says, is that an einish, brother? It must have been very sinful. You know what I mean? The fee tiveshalo. Now somebody's going to get a stomach ache, somebody won't. Or rosho kshiamod l'shemesh. There are people which get a big headache is when they're in the sun after 5 minutes, and other people can work in a field forever and they have no problem. The thing that he will have these yigios, these hard things which will come afilu al amlachim. You go in elu ein and itzal mehem. Ella, no one is saved from that. This is not Sachar, this is not Onish, this is Mikra. And no one is saved from that, except for 2 quiet categories. Who's saved from Mikra? So here it goes very interesting. Ella, Harasha Gamur, the ultimately wicked person, Liganom, he's definitely going to hell. Therefore, Mikabel Olamo, he gets his world in this world. They heed him in this world, even from Mikre. Lasot lo kol ritzono b'olam hazeh. He gets everything he wants in this world. Shene'emar yachilu drachav b'chol eis. Yeah, a Rasha Gomer is going to be saved from Mikra. So when you get saved from a Mikra, you're not stuck in a traffic jam. It could simply be because that's called menakim le'mischiyosov. We want to be menakim mischiyosecha, because we want you to have no schuyas up in Olam Haba. So you're going to get a favor here in this world. And that's Avoshar B'nei Adam, a person which is not a Rasha Gomer for the Ganem. The typical John Doe, you and me. No, we try our best, but we fail. However we fail. Kulam, Ben Tzadikim, whether you're righteous, Ben Rishalim, Bichlal Minagol Shalolam Haim. Did you see the words here? Here we use the words, whether you're a tzaddik or a Russia, you're nasun lemikveh. Things going to happen. If you walk in the sun, you're going to get sunstroke. It doesn't have nothing to do with einish. You're going to eat a bad food. Don't say God sent the bad food. You say, you idiot. You're going to get a clogged blood vessel. Don't blame God. If you have to, blame the pizza you ate. Okay, this is nasun lemikveh, except for a chassid gomer that he said in the previous source Yud. He said a chassid gomer, a yareyav. That's the different words. Here he said, but just tzaddik here means that tzaddik cannot. That means he's not going to get him. But tzaddik bedin, like us, we live a year. That means we're tzaddikim in the din of Rosh Hashanah. We're alive. There are people which are rishayim bedin. Yeah, but so what? That doesn't mean I'm a tzaddik gomer. Very far from it. It only means that right ma'asav are skuyos versus miyat ma'asav could be aveiros for all as we know, either in machshava or in dibur and ma'asav. The typical John Doe is nasun lemikra. Now, these are 2 sources. The other source that I want to show you is source Hey. Go to source Hey. And this is a Ramban, also Yud Zayin Aleph. All this is quoted before this Ramban in Shmos, the first one. So go to the underlined piece in the middle, after the first third of the piece. V'tam laskir ataz Hashem ki bo yasu hanisim anistarim latzadikim latzil mimavis nafsham. Yes, what are nistarim? Nistin nistarim. When he says nisim nistarim, latzil mimavis nafsham, a tzaddik is going to be saved from normal death. Lechayoisam berav, he's going to give them life, although hey, there's a famine outside. Livdaisam b'milchama miyad cheref. They're redeemed from being killed in a war. The bomb won't go near them. Okay? Why? It's an Esakana. If he's a tzaddik gomer, if there's a nes nister, then you're going to be safe from the mikra. Kechol anisim na'asu la'avraham v'la'avot. Yes, we had super protection. So we talk about a person which this occurs to him. That's a nes. Okay, by tzaddik gomer, it's always going to happen. And all the sachar found in b'chukosai telechu, that if we behave ourselves, so many great things will happen. Upashat Vayaki Tavo. There you have the brachot and the klalot. Shekulam nisim. What are we talking about? Brachas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, klalos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. God said that if we behave ourselves, we have certain Hashgacha. Pratis, this is the Sachar. The idea that if we're constantly Davik B'Shechina, God will save us from Mikra. All these things are Nisim Gloria, are Nisim. He doesn't say there's no Mikra. He says that being saved from Mikra is a Nes. That's what he says. Ki ein min hateva sheyavo hakshamim b'itam v'avdenu elokim. It's not a law of nature that if we serve God well, we're going to get rain. V'shelo yiyu shamayim kebarzel kasher nizra b'shana shvi'it. And there's no nest that says, there's no law of nature that if we don't keep Shemitah, then we're going to have there's going to be no rain the year afterwards. These are all Sachar and Oynish. Do you notice? All the schar that God promised in the Torah. Kulam nisim. Those are all miracles. We don't see it as a miracle, but it's a hidden miracle. So now here he's talking about, not about Mikra, but about saving me from Mikra, or Sachar or Einish. Ubekulam titnatzech varechet hamazalos. All this, it's going to overwhelm the Varechet hamazalos is a nice way. Well, the laws of astrology, at the time they believed that astrology had something to do with the laws of nature. I'm not going into that at the moment. We today would call it the natural order of things. It's not as if we see that something changed. They're not like supreme, unbelievable freak occurrences. No, they're normal. Those are there for proof. Remember, we use the word mofet, meaning proof of his existence. Mishanim ateva, they change nature, b'pirsum, in a very loud way. They are done with them yud kevavke, ashehi gidlo, etc. V'lechein amar ata l'Avram Avinu, ki hu atakif amnatzech shigbar lamazal. You, Avram, he says, you're called kel shakai. What it means that we're not talking about freak occurrences. We're talking about in Mikra, in the world of Mikra. I want you to understand, you with your children, because of your mitzvahs or your averis, will overcome teva, yigbar al mazal, v'yolid, v'yeh brit beino bein zaro. Thus, you are going to overcome the laws of nature, and you will have a child. And then there's a covenant between God and the children of Abraham, la'olam, that's us. Sheyeh chelek Hashem amo, ubertzono yanigam, lo yiyu tachet memshel kochav u'mazal. We won't be under the memshola of a kochav u'mazal. But therefore, what's going to govern us? Hello, sachar, einish, or protection from a mikra. That's all we have. Now, those are all the sources mentioned before, for goodness sakes. We got to come to a clear conclusion, and that is everything we've just said until now. It's very clear that what the Ramban means in source Aleph doesn't mean that everything is Exer Ma'ashamayim. It means to say that Mikra is Exer Hashamayim, the laws of nature are Exer Hashamayim, and then adding the things before, and therefore God can manipulate that by deciding, writing in the laws of nature that no one's aware of it, that Sachar and Einish are incorporated in the laws of nature too, and saving from Mikra for certain people. So to take this Ramban and print books on this, to say that this Ramban says that everything is a decree, etc. I hate to say it, it's Pashit Megala Pana B'Torah Shaleika Halacha. That's not the Pshat in the Ramban. And I don't want to say how many people have written on this. The Pshat in the Ramban is very simple. Yes, we have Sachar, we have Einish, we have Hatzalah Mimikra, and if you don't have Hatzalah Mimikra, it means to say you better check your meiser. Why didn't you have Hatzalah for Mikra? But understand that even Mikra is Hashgacha Klalis. That's what he said. Yes, God wants the dinosaurs to exist. When obviously the dinosaurs became extinct, it means to say there was no more Hashgacha on Shmir Samin. God decided that dinosaurs don't have to be anymore. That's going to be very true. That's all we have in this Ramban. To cap this up, it's all one big Ramban in source Zion. I need this to be understood and clearly because you have no idea how many people, how this is misconstrued. So we're going to read this Ramban. The Ramban himself writes that everything he says here is based on Rambam and Moreh Nevuchim. Now, you actually have the sheets of Moreh Nevuchim. I will not read them because they're very nice, summarized in this Ramban. So I'm going to read the Ramban in Iyov, that's in Moshe Rav Kook has in the Kitvei Ramban, the Pirush Ramban on Iyov. This is on the pasuk in Perek Lamed Zayin of Lo Yigra Mitzadik Einav. God will not take his eyes off the tzaddik. So let's read what this is. Zeh Katuv Mefaresh Inyan Gadol B'Yan Hashgacha. This pasuk carries within it a very important idea dealing with God's supervision of the world. Ubo psukim rabim. There are multiple psukim dealing with Hashgacha through Tanakh. Ki anshei Torah ve'emunah tmima, people of Torah and of pure faith, ya'aminu b'Hashgacha, they believe in God's supervision. Ki akel yashgiach, he will supervise, v'yishmor, he will also be involved to guard. Anshei min ha'adam, specifically underwrite that, not daimim, Tzameach and Chai. Only min ha'adam. There is no hashgacha at all on specific animals. That's just mikra. That's what you call hashgacha klalit. Or there's no. If a leaf falls, it's not because God decreed it. God actually doesn't care about this specific leaf. He needs that in autumn leaves should fall. Okay, if it covered, is smothered a worm, God couldn't care less whether the worm is alive or dead. Simply, it happened. Okay, so this is what we're going to read here. Hakel yashgiach v'yishmor anshei min ha'adam kimo shekatuv gadol ha'itza rabba liliyah asher nechab kuchot al kol darkei bnei adam. Your eyes are open on all ways of Homo sapiens. Letet leish kidrachav. Every person should get according to his manners of life. Ukaprim alalav, and you should get the fruit of his activities equals what you call sachar and einish. This is a pasuk in Yirmiyahu. V'amar David, and David said in Divrei Hayamim, Ki chalev avot daresh Hashem. God searches in all the hearts of people. V'chol yetze machshavot mevim, and he understands all the inclinations and thoughts that we have. In other words, he's interested. He checks, and the first pasuk taught us that he gives payment. The second pasuk touches that he looks into whether you're worthy of it or not. He says further, "V'lo baba Torah u'benvuah," we find nowhere in Torah or in Nevuah, sheyeh akel mashgiach v'shomer ishei shar briot she'em medabrot. We find no indication at all. This is the Ramban, which is Avi Avoisa Kabbalah writing. We have no indication in Torah or in Navi that there's Hashgacha Pratis on anything outside of the speaking Homo sapien. Equals not in Daimim, not a rock, not a leaf, and not an animal. Rak shomer aklalim bichlal hashamayim v'tzva'am. He keeps the laws of nature. That is called hashgacha klalit, as we had that word before. V'lachen is because of that this God does not really care or even think about this unique cow or that unique leaf. That's the halacha who trash chita l'tzarech ha'adam. Therefore, you can slaughter any animal you want for the purpose of man, simply because there's no the life of animal X versus Y is inconsequential. What's consequential is God wants the species to exist, so there's certain laws of preservation of the species. But basically, the specific animal, his existence is inconsequential, and therefore God allowed that to be killed, slaughtered, so just for eating, or to attain atonement with the blood of animals on the altar. Whether it's spiritual or material necessities or usage, this is mutter. Why? The answer is because their existence as a prat, this animal, this leaf, this soilus, menachas, this piece of flour, this wheat, is inconsequential. Batam azeh yado ubarur. The reason of this is known, is renowned, and it's very clear. What is it? Why is there only in Adam there's Hashgacha, versus in all other species, Daimem, Tzomeach, B'chai, there is not? Ki ha'adam, for the Homo sapien, Mipnei shu makir ta'lukav, because he has what the Rambam calls Tzelem Elokim. Tzelem Elokim means the capability of abstract thinking. You have the capability of abstract thinking. Therefore, you can perceive an abstract idea called a God, and you can actually study it, know it with depth and with profundity. That's a heavy limud to have. It's called Elokus. Adam because he knows his God, that's why God will supervise on him, and he will guard him. In other words, two things. First of all, he will be interested in what he's doing. The nafkaminas for schar ba'inish. Bishmor means from the mikrim. Lo kain shar briot, for all other brios equals doimem, tzomeach, and chai, sheinan medabrot, they're not capable of articulating ideas. Veinam yodot boram. The klal is, it doesn't mean to say it's not the mechanical idea of articulating ideas. It means they are capable of basically of seeing things in an abstract and therefore expressing it. When you can express it, that means you understand it. Because if you don't, or you just feel it. If you can't understand, you can't express it, that means you don't know what you're talking about. It means he's capable of formulating a crystallized sentence of understanding, which describes understanding of God. Animals also communicate. What's the difference between the noise of a person and the noise of an animal? They communicate unbelievably. The answer we're not talking about, that they can communicate very base necessities. Here you can communicate complex ideas, which many of them are abstract. Now, feelings they have, and they can communicate feelings. Oh yeah, love, hate, vengeance, all this can be communicated in the animal world, but not why. Yodot Baram, they don't know their creator. They don't think in those terms. So that's the cloud. First and foremost, there's no Hashgacha. God's Hashgacha is totally dependent on the extent that you know him. Number one, knowing him, living your life based on acknowledging God, and thus the more you know him, the more there is Hashgacha. He continues there by saying, therefore, he writes, and because of this reason, Yishmor tzadikim. That's why he will guard, equals even from haphazard realities, the tzadikim. What we call tzadikim means people who live with an intense God consciousness and live that lifestyle. Ki kasher libam ve'einehem tamid imo. The tzaddik, here you have the description of what a tzaddik is. Now, person whose heart and his eyes are constantly looking to God. He sees everything as an expression of God. He doesn't see the world as any independent at all. It's all an expression of God. He sees the laws of science as an expression of God. Literally thinking that, living that 24/7. So he said, yes, if you constantly think about him and live with that idea, he also is constantly looking at you. From beginning to the end of the year, ad till chasida gamur, the total chasid. Now we know what it means. Hadavek belukav tamid. The word chasid means a person which cleaves 24/7, 365 to God. Below ye parade, he simply doesn't say. That's his lifestyle. That's his built-in show. That's how he lives. That's how he breathes. Hadavek b'machshavto bo b'inyan minyanei ha'olam. Okay, he thinks of God in anything, even when he goes to the market. Okay, he sees everything in the context of Hashgacha HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Metzias HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and so on and so forth. Everything he sees as an aspect of God's creation. He lives vividly the idea of Machadesh B'tuvo, B'chol Yom, Tamid, Maaseh Bereshit. He doesn't take anything as independent of God. His constantly lives in that. He doesn't just think about it during Birchas Krishma. That's how he lives, and that's obviously expressed in how his calculates his values and how he acts. If he lives that way, then obviously he's consistent with that. It's not just a fleeting thought. So what happens to that person? Yen nishmar tamid mikol mikre azman. He will always be protected from haphazard realities which occur, afila ovim beteva, even natural realities. Not talking about the things just occurred because somebody made a mistake and didn't push the button and therefore there was no siren in Haifa. Okay? That could have been a mikra, it could have been oinish, we don't know. Okay? No, but a tzaddik gomer would even be protected from natural phenomena. Okay? V'ishtamer bahem, he will be guarded from them. B'nes ya'aselo to me, he will constantly have miraculous intervention, even in the laws of science. Ki'ilu yechashev mikate elyonim, as if he's one of those that exist in the celestial abode of malachim. Somehow like as if he's not part of this existence, but I've said this existence which is constantly in deterioration, the Mikra team, no, half as time doesn't do anything to it. Whatever happens to him is Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So you want to understand the only person which has constant Hashgacha Pratis, that we can say that which the Hasidim say, that everything happens to me is the Hashgacha Pratis. The only one that can honestly say that is the Chassid Gomer Hadavik B'Bayrai Tamid, even in Yani Olam Hazeh. That doesn't leave to too many people that I know about, okay, to say the least. Ukefi Kirvato B'Dabek Belokav, and at the extent that you were in intensity and also time, that you're Davek Belokav, as we explained before, living with that that intense God awareness, Yishtamer Shmira Mu'ula, then you will be really protected. Varachok Minakel B'Machshavto. If what happens, you're very, very observant, but you really don't think about God. I remember a very nice story I heard when I was a little boy. In Lubavitch, there were two friends that they one of them went to learn by the Gra in Vilna, and the other one went to learn by the Maggid of Mezrich. And Mezrich, that was the successor of the Baal Shem Tov. Well, they came back home, Ben Azmanim, and the guy from Vilna says to the guy from Mezrich, "No, what'd you learn there, brother? Come to us. Well, the Gra will teach you how to learn a blood Gemara." Are you kidding? You know what they taught us there? Says what? They taught us how to read minds. I says, come on. What am I thinking about now? He says, you're thinking about God. Says, not true. So that's why you should go to Mizrich. They'll teach you to constantly think about God. You understand? That's what he's saying over here. The fellow that has the Hashgacha Tmatis is the one that went to Mizrich. If you just learned the blood Gemara all day, it ain't gonna happen. You have to be Davik B'Bayre, literally to thinking about it. Smusa Yizbach. Yes, if you're learning Torah with a constant awareness, this is Hu v'Chachmas Echad, and this is Chachmas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is a constricted expression of the infinite wisdom of God, and that's what I'm internalizing. Oh yeah, then you do that, you're Davik B'Bayre then too. But if not, if that's not what's lingering behind your mind, no, you're in the middle of Baba Kama thinking about crime and punishment. That's not Davik B'Bayre. Tamid. So he says, but if you're you're very observant, but it's not what you have in your mind. Or by myself, well, you're quite far from God because you do actions which don't exactly fit, not with his values, not with his laws. Here's my first. Even if you're not chayiv misa with your chait, you're good. You won the battle of Rosh Hashanah. You're okay. You have no affairs to your chayiv misa. You may die because of haphazard realities. Mefurshah Ramban. This is based on the Gemara that we learned before, we learned last time around. If you're not a tzaddik gomer, you can definitely die shaloi b'mishpat because of mikra. That's clear as day, often a Ramban. So those people try to stick those ideas opposite of this and that piece of Ramban, the end of boy. They probably never learned Ramban. They learned one piece and they went jumping. That's not what this is. Davar Pashit. Ubo b'zeh psukim rabim. Omar David Alev Shalom. Raglei chasidav yishmor. Okay, so who says that you're a chassid? Chassid, we just explained what it means. He's davek b'bayrai 24/7, 365. Or to the extent that you're davek b'bayrai. Raglei chasidav. At the time when you are acting as a chassid, which means living with an intense God awareness, then you have shmira. Risha'im b'choshech yidmu. Does it say that Risha'im will be punished? No. He says simply you will not protect them, so they're walking around like blind people in the dark. They're going to stumble over things. If a person goes in a dark room and stumbles, does that be oynish? No. It could simply be mikra. Okay, but the rush has no protection from mikra, and that's the pasuk. Risha'im b'choshech yidmu. Amar ki akrovim elav. The Ramban is now explaining that pasuk. People who are close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, b'tachlit hashmira, they're the ultimate shmira even from mikra. Rechukim imenu, mizumanim lemikrim. They are set up for mikra. Ve'elem matzil min hanezek, because no one's going to protect them from damage. He doesn't say that Rishoim automatically it's oynish. No, it could be mikra, but there's nothing saving him. That's what he says. They are like stumbling in the dark. That's how he explains that pasuk in Shmuel Aleph. Kemo lech b'choshech, like a person walking in the darkness. It is obvious he's going to stumble. Im lo yishtamer, unless he's very careful. V'yelech la'at. V'amar, here's another pasuk. This is an interesting pasuk in Shmuel Aleph. Loi b'cherev u'b'chanis yoshia Hashem. God does not save us because we have chetz or kippat barzel, all these other things. It says mefurish, God doesn't need that. Uksiv ayin Hashem al yireya. It is the eye of God on those who are yorei from Him. What does that mean? Hamiyachalim lechastoy, that they're constantly looking up to Him. We need your chesed. That's what they look at. They don't see only their relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Yomar, what does this mean? Again, now he's going to explain this, like a Ramban would explain. Einav alehem, his eyes are on those people, kasher heim miyachlim lo tamid, because they're constantly looking for him. They want to be close to him. V'nafsham davka imo, their personalities cleave to him. They don't see anything outside of him. Now he says, what about us? So this is very nice. So these people don't need a chetz and don't need this. They're doing well. But you have to be a chassid gomer. And the chassid gomer, you're going to protect. Let's remember, even the chassid gomer, you pay a bill. But you have it. You have the protection. Rav Abba has the protection. Shmuel and Rav didn't think that they were Hasidim Gemurim. That's Rav and Shmuel. Nice people. Okay? Profound rabbis. Okay? They didn't think they were Hasidim Gemurim. They had to do normal Gashmi's Dikei Shtadlus and not going to a Makam Sakana. That's what he talks about us. I love these people saying that we have to, trust this, trust that. Because most people are in the middle. They're not Russia. Most people, Baruch Hashem, people that they're not Shoim Gemurim. They're not Tzadikim Gemurim. Therefore, Shivsa Torah Hechaletzen Elchamim. That's why we tell people to go to war. You must join the army. Why? Because you're not a Tzadik Gomer that you can trust God or uses Gula, and you're not a Russia Gomer. You're in the middle. So we don't know. Are you going to be saved from Mikra or won't you be saved from Mikra? It's a Makam Sakana. There are big missiles coming all the way from Iran. No, it's a Makam Sakana. What are we supposed to do? Go and take Tilim? I'm sorry. No, the pasuk says Yechaletz and Nilchamim. You have to go to the battle. That's why we have a Mashuach Milchama, to say those who are weaklings and therefore emotionally are not stable enough to handle war, they will destroy the morale of the people. So Kain tells them, please leave, and then when you don't go home, you go to deal with logistics. There's no one that's exempt. Even when the Kain says, oh, you got married 1 year, you're still the first year, or you just built a house, you didn't do it, or you're scared. What happens to them? They join the logistics team. They do the cooking, they do the food. They're not on in the battlefield. That's the only nafkamina. But we say in our country, they work with Pikud HaOref. Okay, that's what it says over here. Lo yimas is levav echab kibavo. We don't want you to destroy morale. Or b'chol tikuna marachot. And we find all the different setting up the battlefield. Asher b'Torah u'b'Nevi'im, as we find both in Torah and Nevi'im. Kigon. Vayishal David b'Hashem. God asked in the Urim v'Tumim, Vayomar lo taleh, do not go now to battle. Haseva achreihem, retreat. Ubat lahem mimul b'kaim. Okay, go on. So God gave him strategy. Okay, go on. Here's the Shmuel, the other pasuk in Shmuel, where it say, Lechu mashach. This is Shoftim. Lechu mashachta b'har Tabor. Go to the Tabor mountain. V'lakachtimcha aser talafim ish. So we see that God gave strategic advice. Now the question is, if it's God intervening, why does he need the aser talafim ish? Why do you need to play a game of retreat and then go a frontal battle? So he says, Ki imru yimeim, if there really were tzaddik gemurim, yotzim b'ma'at goy v'notzchim b'li neshek. They wouldn't need the missiles and they don't need a real army. Take a few people and you'll do it. V'ilo yu chayivim b'nitzuach am, lo yi'ilamo. And if because of your Averis, brother dear, you're going to lose. So you can have 1 million soldiers, they ain't going to help you. So what's the story? Why does God give strategic advice? Raka inyan kiruyim litnaeg b'derech hateva v'mikra. We don't have, when we talk about a Blachman, it's a makom sakana. The issue is not sachar and einish. The issue is a makom sakana. Do you have shmira from makom sakana? Don't you? So the answer is most people don't know if they'll have shmira or they won't have shmira. And it's a big mess. Therefore, you must do the natural thing. This is what the Rambam explained, Biur Yafei, very, very clear understanding, the Sefer Moreh Nevuchim. This is what Elihu says to Eoy, if you're a tzaddik gomer, which the Ramban explains with your dafik, your machshava, and your ma'aseh, 24/7, 365, bravo. You're able tamid kinyan ene Hashem yireah. Here you have the Ramban. Most people, the Rambam actually Moreh Nevuchim adds to this. The Rambam and Moreh Nevuchim add that even the great Nevi'im had ups and downs in the intensity of their God of their shmira, because their conscience, dveikus and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, had ups and downs. They were not one level. The Rambam writes Moreh Nevuchim, the only one person which is constantly dubbing with Baira and never and always at Hashgacha Pratis. Nothing happened to him without Hashgacha Pratis is Moshe Rabbeinu. Outside of Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest prophets also had ups and downs in their mikra, and therefore that they also had to live a normal life. Would you believe it? It's unbelievable. Okay, so even Nevi'im, goodness sakes, before Rambam and Nevuchim, but since people are afraid of the Rambam, they think he was a philosopher. So I'm quoting Ramban, which is the Via Voice of Kabbalah, for goodness sakes. So to tell me Al Pia Kabbalah, well, that's not Kabbalah, Sir Ramban. What have we learned from this Ramban? It's clear what Ramban is saying. Ramban is saying there is Mikra. Ramban is saying there's also Zachar, and there's also Einish. Everything is from God. Mikra didn't just happen. The laws of gravity and science happen because of God. The fact that certain realities come together, it's also what happened. Not that God decreed that should be together. It happens normally. Now what does God say? Well, will I protect you or won't I protect you? That depends on who you are. You have to have a lot of dafik b'bayre to be able to be protected from that reality. And he says that's why we need armies. That's why we need ammunition. You can't just say, I'm going to sit in the Beis Medrash and my Torah will protect you. It ain't enough. Even David HaMelech, it said that he had 3,000 people in the army. It was a small army, I guess. 2,000 were basically, he had 1,000 in battle, chavi, 1,000 logistics. Interesting to understand the proportions of an army in those days. And 1,000 were to sit and learn the Beis Medrash and to pray that they should help. So whatever it was, but he wasn't just happy with that. He needed to have all three. One has to put this on the table. We can't. So I'm learning Torah. I don't have to go into a bomb shelter. You're an idiot. That's not worse than Kir Natui, that Rav and Shmuel didn't trust. We're afraid to go. Maybe it's Mikra. It's Shas Takana. This can happen to you, and to think you can't because I'm learning is it's not even Gaiva. It's an idiot. He didn't learn Ramban. What can I do? And this is very common today, so I'm saying it now in a very clear way. Okay, so Adkan, this is what I need in the Ramban to explain, to clarify that mistake that people have in the Ramban. I now want to read in the second package you have with there. If you have it, it's basically, well, there's two pieces there. There's Sefer Elima of the Ramak of Ramak, which is Moshe Cordovero, and then there's a synopsis of that in the fourth page there. It's called Shomer Emunim. Shomer Emunim was written by Yosef Irgas. Yosef Irgas was a very big Mekubal. He was a Talmud of Maram Zakut. Maram Zakut, we have also a Goyes of the Mishnayis, Kedesh Ramaz. Also in Zohar Kodesh, we have Ramaz. Ramaz was Pesh Lishi to Chaim Vital. He was basically a Talmud of Rabbi Yamin HaLevi, which is a Talmud of Chaim Vital, and he was a Talmud of Rabbi Yamin HaLevi. So we're talking about somebody, that's the Kabbalah Sari. A nice way of saying what came from Rabbi Chaim Vital to Rabbi Yamin HaLevi came to the Ramaz, and from the Ramaz to Rabbi Yisrael Rigas. That's who we're talking about. So people tell me, what's Al-Piyah Kabbalah? Maybe the Ramban is some old Kabbalah. This is something new. So I'm going to show you a few things here. Okay? It's really worth going through all of it. He literally writes, he's based here on what the Ramak wrote in Sefer Elima. I'm going to read one thing he writes is clear as day, and that is, as we mentioned before, that there's only Hashgacha Klalis in the Chai, Tzomech, Domain. This idea that there's Hashgacha Pratis and Chai, Tzomech, Domain is a concoction of the Baal Shem Tov, so to speak. He got it Beruach HaKodesh from Achia Shaloini. This is already, if you believe it, you believe it. If you don't, what can I do with you? The Mekubalim didn't know about that. We're talking about the Ramak and ultimately also the Ari, because if the Ari would argue with the Ramak, the Shem Ramunim would have bought it. He cites it befurish. Go to page. There's a page here. It's called 56. And you have here in the third paragraph, Hashgacha Arishona. He Hashgacha Kolelet, L'chol Minei Nivraim. There's general Hashgacha. We describe the laws of nature. She'inam Balei Gmul. All creations which there's no schar ba'oinish. Equals not man. Behem Gimel Sugim. Chai, Tzomech, V'domeim. And there we only have Hashgacha Koleles. Okay? Because Echad Basugim, Nechlak B'minim Rabim Kanoda, we know there's a lot of species in each one of the Zuchai Tzemech M'daber. Ofan Hashgachatam hu ha'yidei hasarim ha'mufkadim kol echad ma'minim. So to speak, there's a department which deals with cockroaches, cats, mice, dogs, etc. What you call sarim. And what does he say? And that's what it means when it says, Ein Esav milamata she'ein lo maza milamala. It means, yeah, God set up, this is the guy who deals with the laws of nature of grass. Doesn't mean that there's a great zera on the blade of grass. He says, but first, that's what's called Hashgacha Klolis. God gave a sar, says, you take care of this, this should always happen. This is what it means. He continues, I'm just going to read the word which is important. Here, go to the last 4 lines of that paragraph. He writes, Omnam hashgacha pratit kegonim yicheh shor ze o yamut. O tinatzel nemala zu o tidares. Will this ox be saved from glory? Will somebody tread on that ant? This is mamish, okay? Or, for example, im yitrov zeh kavish et zazvuv. Will the spider catch that mosquito? You know what I mean? Or something like that. Kol ela pratim en koach b'sar elyon lashgiach b'zeh. There is no hashgacha there. V'chol balei ha'chayim v'kosh ke'atzomchim b'domamim lo yishgachu al pratei inyanim ke'ele. There's no hashgacha on these things. God cares about the species. He doesn't need any particular blade of grass or any particular ant or any particular worm or any particular leaf. There's no necessity to have hashgacha on specifically members of the species. Everything that occurs with members of Doim Tzemach the mikre gomer lo b'gzeirat Hashem yitbarach. It couldn't be clearer. This yet the laws of nature. There is no decree that this leaf should fall on this hand and that on this thing. This is mamish verkehrt from Teres Baal Shem Tov, and here we're talking about Kabbalah Sa'ari and Kabbalah Sa'ramak. The only time it will happen, I can tell you right now, there's a pig. If this will affect the man. And because this is your ox, and I want you to have the ownership of financial duress, I'll make sure that your ox dies, God says. Or if I will arrange that somehow the bees will come to your house, they will be agitated, and somehow I'll allow them to come to your house, not to destroy you, not them. And whatever happens to an animal, even rechush, it's hashgacha not on the Demer Tzemach, but to the extent that it affects the Adam. That is found also Mefurish here. Then we have something else. I want to say one more. I flipped the page. There's also hashgacha shlishit, hashgacha kolelet. There is general hashgacha. Shem equals the laws of nature. Shem vateles hapratit. Example. There's COVID. Makat Medina. We have COVID. So do you think that everybody that died in COVID is because of Hashgacha Pratis? Loi v'loi v'loi. Dr. Ramak. Kishenatan reshut lamashchit lechabel eino mavchin ben tzadik l'rasha. Sorry. Unless you're a tzadik gomer, which is saved. Outside of that, once it's a makam sakana, sorry boys, eino mavchin ben tzadik l'rasha. A makas medina means that. If there's a plague in the city, go somewhere else. There's no way. You have to run away. What we're saying is that tzaddik she'eno gamur. Why? He gave him an 8 tzaddikim. There are 3 levels in tzaddikim. Yesh tzaddik yesod olam. There's a tzaddik which he yachol atzila olam ulo b'tzidkato. Yeah. While the Reb Chaim Kanevsky was alive, there was no missiles in Bnei Brak. We had quite a few recently. So there was a tzaddik which saved the city. Okay? Yechol Atzilam kigoyna avot, Moshe Rabbeinu, v'chein ish nigzera l'gzera, o sfina atobat b'yam, yesh koach b'tzadik, v'atzilat kulam. That's very true. That's number 1. That's a very big man. And then another tzaddik, at least you'll be saved from Makam Sakana. Not that there's a gzeira on you, but you'll be saved from Makam Sakana. Who is that? Noach. He was saved from Sakana. He wasn't going to be killed, but he was saved because he was a tzaddik. Yesh tzaddik, which is most of them, she'uni spayim aklal. He dies together with all the rest of them. They know Yachol Atzil, Afil Atzmo. Balzen Ne'emar, Yesh Nishpa, V'lo Mishpat. That's the pasuk we had in the Gemara Chagiga. Sorry, it's a Makam Sakana. The Gestapo is out. You can be a big tzaddik. No, sorry, you don't have enough to save you from the Gestapo. I want to understand how far this goes. So this is basically the second idea we saw in the Ramban. The first idea we saw in the Ramban, the Ramak brings is what? That there's no hashgacha on Doim Tzemach B'chai, only on Medaber. That there is the idea of mikra. It depends if it's a makam sakana, you only a tzaddik gomer is saved. Bingo, that we know from we looked at Gemara Chagiga, and we said it also in the Ramban. And then there is, for example, I'm going to page 58. What about sicknesses? Yisurim shem gufo sha'adam kegon ha'chalaim. Mixed sicknesses that you could normally, if you'd live a healthy lifestyle, I mean, really healthy lifestyle, as opposed to even consuming food, regular food in the supermarket today. Yesh mehem mashtut shebnei adam. Don't blame God. Blame yourself. You're an idiot. Kigon tzinimu pachim b'derech hikesh. Right? That's a pasuk. You're going to get a cold because you're obstinate. You don't take it's chilly. Put on a sweater, or eat a healthy diet that your immune system will work. Okay? If you eat a cholesterol full diet, you're basically suicidal. Not only are you going to be sick, but you will afterwards be punished for it. We will be punished for not living a healthy lifestyle. You're a big gorge and you want to eat a lot of steak or ice cream, whatever it is. Don't. That's it. You're going to get it. You're actually a sinner. So not only is a natural reality that you're going to be sick, but God won't save you because that's an act of sin. Because of these chaloim, you couldn't do the mitzvahs. God will demand that too. Not only that you killed yourself, but because of that, you go in battle Torah and mitzvahs. Chayav adam nirdof achrei refuah bebitachon b'borei otzmo b'olam. Kemo hazorea ba'adama bebitachon b'borei shiten ma'ayim, etc. You must do what is normal. You have to understand that God will do the rest. We have to do what we have to do. Here's before. So he says even more. For example, as he writes, the amount of money you're going to spend on hospitalization or medical insurance is also part of the same thing. All the tsar that you get, that's because you made it yourself, and that's a hate. Because you didn't keep your health. So that's the einish is going to be, you'll be sick. You'll spend money on your health insurance and so on and so forth. Finally, he says, Hamorot ra'im, bad things that happen, because he's an idiot. Ki garam lo rato. Don't blame God. This is constantly saying, do not say these are decrees. These are not decrees. You brought them upon yourself. I mean, you can't be more explicit than what I'm reading here. So to say that the Ramban said that everything is a decree from God, it's only the best. So if you are from a best oriented family, I guess it'd be legitimate to follow that way of thinking. If you also follow all the other teachings of the best, which I highly doubt, not anybody over here, but if you do, bravo. If not, I think you should revert back to normative Judaism, which is Rambam, Ramban, the Ramak, the Ari, you know what I mean? That's what your great grandfather did before the best showed up and changed the world. So this is what he writes. For example, he says, what happens if a person made a good deal, but like an idiot, he walks and talks about it to the whole world? I'm not even talking about ayin hara. You know, you're putting yourself in a situation where people are going to try to get a little leket shikha and paya from the money you made. You're putting yourself into situations. Did God put you in that situation? You blabbered. It's your fault. And if somehow someone bamboozled you, do not blame God. And don't say it's einish. Say you're an idiot. This is what he writes over here. He says, even at Tzad, don't ask me, even at Tzadik Gomer, he doesn't know what he's doing. He brings evil upon himself. Finally, he writes the last one, which is really important, is the Hashgacha, which is called Hester Panim. Sometimes God not just will he not protect you because you're tzad, he will simply be master panim. You did enough of Beirus. I don't even want to intervene to help you. And although maybe on one hand you're a great thinker and you're a holy guy, but no, you have enough baggage that I don't want. The einish is Hester Panim. And that's when the worst things can happen to you. Because when God says, I'm not even going to intervene, that can happen by a very special person. What do you mean with such a tzaddik, such a heilige Rebbe? I don't know. Raman says, the Ramak says, even the smallest of Eris in Machshava or Dibur. He goes on and says, what about a previous Gilgul? I'm not going there. I'm going to learn without that. You know what I mean? He also says, God is medagdig by holy people, Kechuta Saira. And if they had a Machshava of Kina, of Kavod or Gaiva or anything like that, that's enough to create Hester Panim b'Makim Sakana. So the Gestapo is going to burn them up. I have no problem. These ideas help me deal with the Holocaust. Once I understand that they're not decrees from God, but they are terrible situations which man made, and we have to have special protection from it. And there's so many reasons why we're not up to protection. Well, then I can understand why terrible things happen to very good people. Why did God do Hester Panim at that stage in history? I don't know. I'm not his accountant. But he clearly did Hester Panim. And once he does Hester Panim, terrible things happen. It's a Pasuk in Navi. Regya Katan Ishtati Panai Mehem. What's a Regya Katan by HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Goodness sakes, if you know, a day is 1,000 years. Regya Katan is a lot of time. Okay? Regya Katan by HaKadosh Baruch Hu of Hester Panim. That can explain everything. It means to say that you have to be like beyond Avram Avinu to be able to be protected from that. So I don't ask questions anymore. Okay? That's so I do this I am obsessed with this thing because I was a child who was obsessed with the Holocaust. And especially when I was young, they told me that Rabbana Parshas boy that everything is the decree of God. And I was blown away. It could have driven me away from Yiddishkeit. It didn't, okay? Because I went to look and learn, okay? And I saw that that's terrible to teach that way in the Ramban. Teach that everything is a decree. It's terrible. It should drive. If I would believe in that, I would walk away. But how can it be? No, I've learned that it's not true. It's not true at all. There's Sachar, there's Einish, there's Mikra, there's protection from Mikra. There's not protection for Mikra. And it's even worse, sometimes they get a Hester Panim, which you really have been beyond to be able to have protection from Mikra. So I blame Adolf Hitler for the terrible things that happened there. Okay? When I look at the young people that will never be older than 19 that fall in the army, they're holiest of holy as far as I'm concerned. That's where people should go for Kibbutz Tzadikim. But don't say that there was a decree for them to die. The Makam Sakana. And they put themselves in a Makam Sakana, which is super Mesiras Nefesh, and they died because the Jews, but they died because it was Yesh Nispa B'lei Mishpat. That's what happened. God didn't want them. What happens to their neshamas, to their years? We know what the Gemara says. It's given to people which are Vatranim, which are Eivra Midaisa. If naturally you would have an emotional reaction and you would blast somebody and you chose not to, you get some of those years. I hate to say it, there's a lot of these extra years running around in the last 2 years. And any person which will be Ma'aval Midaisav can be Zoich to get some of those years added to his lifeline. I just want you to know that. So that's Chasal Siddur Pesach. We ended the sugya of Hashgacha. We will move on to a new topic in Mir Tashem in the 2 weeks. Have a great one. Bye.
Ready to ask a question off topic? At what point, just with everything that's been going on, so at what point would we stop and say, for example, people are sending out different topic, that people are sending out things, now is the time to say Nishmat, not to say Nishmat, to start saying Hallel.
I don't, these, how does one... all these things, the answer to all this is all these gulos, they're not in Gemara, not in Shulchan Aruch, not in Rambam, not in Gemara. And they're not in their, I don't know who made them up. There's only one thing you're supposed to do. You're supposed to daven in a surah. It's a mitzvah deraisa. You daven in a surah, and you have with kavanah g'dayla, because there's a special din of kavanah for tefillah based surah, and you have to do Torah and mitzvahs. You have to marbe kavod shemayim. This I know is written in the Chumash. Things will be good. Things will be bad. That's the biggest gula. I don't want any of this gula. Nishmas, nishmas is as I can say ashiyotzu b'kavanah. That's more important. All these things, all these kupa sa'ir thing is driving me nuts. Okay, everyone feels today we don't have to Torah mitzvah, we have to do zgulos. Oh, there are two pigeons at the hotel. Obviously, this is a sign of something. You know what that is? That's Darkei Amoiri. That's what that is. That's Ma'onim U'Machashet. That's an Isser to do what these people are doing. Oh, we will pray for you 40 days at the cave of Rachel and things will happen. You get it, nice promo. Shtusim, okay? You're supposed to believe in God. God doesn't say go to cave of Rachel. God says do Torah read Kriyas Shema, read Chumash. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do what the Kodesh Baruch Hu wants. Be medagdik and machshava, dibur and ma'aseh and Torah and mitzvahs. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be marbu kavod shemaim. You should be a nicer person to people. You see an old lady, help her walk across the street, and you can hold her hand on me, okay? You know what I mean? And if you see a poor person, take him to a restaurant. That's what you should do. Read Yeshaya and Navi and see what God wants. The Davzain mentioned, you have to be good to people. That's all of Yeshayahu screams about that. They're all from, but they're not nice, right? Read it. Read that. We're not even from. Who's makbid is man kriyashma? Who's makbid is man tefillah? Who davens shman eser ka'imid lifnei hamelech? Should I start saying what we have to fix? So don't look for saying nishmas. Live according to the Shulchan Aruch. The first sip of Shulchan Aruch is Shivisi Hashem v'negdi tamid. That's the first Ramon Shulchan Aruch. You need nishmas. You need this. You need that. Fulfill that first Ramah.
But how do we so when people talk,
I don't care what people say. You look at what's in the Shulchan Aruch. Was steht in der Kodesh Baruch Hu's Torah? Was steht in his Gemara? Was steht all the rest? Reject. It's all this Chassidish Baba Meister. We've become Chassidim. It's good for Sfardim. They love these things. Did you notice there were never a Gilgul that came to Berlin? Only in Baghdad. Did you notice? Without going into the why, think about it. No, I don't think any Gilgulim came to Berlin. Somehow, Dibuks. There were no Dibuks in Berlin. They all came to Baghdad. Figure out why. I'm not even going to explain because I'll be stoned. Relax. We have to live like Berlin. That's my answer to this question. You can repeat me all over. No. Laws up the Mishigas. Torah v'mitzvahs. Imbechu koiset elechu. Mitzvahs yishmeiru. Ushmartem v'asisim oisam. Etc. V'ayim shemaya tishma mitzvahsai. Asher nechim sevetim ayim. Etc. V'after Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha b'chol nafshcha b'chol meidecha. Etc. What do they need more than that? Ragle Chasidav Yishmar. What does that mean? The dove, open up a Ramban on the pasuk Ledovka boy. Look it up. The Dovka boy. Which the Ramban discusses what does it mean to be Dovik in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It doesn't mean label sharpens dveikus, the music. No. The Dovka boy is what he describes here. That you put your mind and think about him 24/7, 365. That's I'm giving you a sgula. You want a sgula? It's a pasuk in Chumash, so I don't mind saying it. It's a sgula that I got it from a great source. It's called God. It was taught me by this great teacher called Nachmanides. You ever hear of him? Okay, so Nachmanides taught us this is what the Lord said. Wow. But Kupa Seir won't send that to you. They will send you, we are now going to do 30 days in the cave of Yonasan ben Uziel. The guy was burning up pigeons all day. I don't know. He's Chayiv and Zikin. Said every time he was learning a bird would flutter by, he would burn, right? I'm not sure what happened by him. It's so funny. People go to Kerastir, right? Kerastir. What are you doing, brother? What about talking to God in your shul? No, there you'll talk. Okay, but you're going to go to Kerastir. Sitzen learn, daven like a mensch. Yeah, when's the last time they said Kerbanis? When's the last time they thought of what they were saying when they said Psukkah de Zimra? When's the last time they were thought on Melech, at least until at the Kodesh, after at the Kodesh? Which the Rambam says if you don't do that, you're not Mekayim feel you didn't daven anything. More the Kula. Abim Megatim Kerastir, and to the Baal Shem of Michelstadt, and to the Rebbe Queens. You're looking for all the ghosts to help you. What about helping yourself? Shlomo has a great story of Schwarze Wolf. Go listen to it. What's the story over there? This guy says, no one wants to help me. Finally says, God, I guess I need you to help me. That's when he was saved. That's the whole story there of Shlomo Schwartz and Wolf. Look it up. God doesn't want you to go to the Rebbes. He wants you to go to him. I don't want to say where this comes from, this idea of going to Rebbes and not to him. It comes from a certain chelik in Rambam. There's a certain lav in the Torah in the Aseres HaDibros. God does not want brokers. He wants direct interaction. We got that, Ben?
Yes, sir.
So let's go with the Nishmat. Be makbid azman kriyashma and tefillah.
Very good, Rabbi.
Seid gebencht.
Amen.
Stock getatzel mimavis. Stock Torah mitzvahs. That's what you have to do. We're good. This is from Volozhin. You understand? This is the way it should be. Seid gebencht. Bracha v'atzlacha.
Amen, amen.